We're back at it now. We're going to go into some more queries, and these are a little bit more advanced in section 3 and section 4. So this is the same database we've been working on. A couple things that we're wanting to do, like our office manager wants us to calculate potential commission on our list price, which would be a calculated field. Like we see that the list price is listed here in the third column. But what we're going to do in a query is create a new field which will take list price times a certain percentage. And that will then change. If the list price changes, the potential commission would change as well. So that's one thing that we're going to do. Another thing we're going to do is kind of based upon what we did with, and the fact that with Rick Chung, when we ran this one, remember, it just found Chung's, and then we had him listed. But if we looked at design view, you can see that Rick Chung is listed as our criteria. So what we want to be able to do is when we run the query for them to ask us which agent we're looking for, whether it be Rick Chung or Simon Beddoe or whoever it might be. And then one other thing that we're going to do is that when we pull these names down for the agents, instead of putting first name, last name, where it'd be Simon Beddoe, we want the result of the query to show us the first initial of the first name and then the last name in a field by itself. That's another form of a calculated field. So instead of Beddoe Simon, what it's going to be in one column, it's going to say S period Beddoe. Okay, so we got quite a bit of work we need to do with this particular query in knowing how to take care of it. So I've already set it up for us. We're going to be using both tables. I've resized it. I'm ready to create my query and build it. The first one's going to be a calculated field. So when I get into it, and you do have to be in that, not just right click on it, but notice how my cursor is clicking. You come down and you can choose build. And we're going to build a query on this first one. So the first thing you do when you build a calculated field is you have to give it a name. And I'm going to use agent's name followed by a colon. This does not have to follow the camel case rules of other field names that we've done. You just spell it out the way you want it to appear at the top of the column. Now we're going to put in a strange calculation, and it's called left parentheses bracket first name, and that's one of our existing fields right now. It's a first name like Simon, right? And comma 1. Now what that does, close parentheses, just so what you understand what that does, is it takes the first name field like Simon, and from the left we're going to take only one letter, which is the letter S. So in essence, agent's name right now contains S for Simon. That's it. Jack Stone, Jack, or whatever his name was, would be J, and so forth. So now we want to add to it. So I'm going to put a space, I'm going to put an ampersand sign, another space, quotation marks, period, and a space, and quotation marks. That gives us, it combines, and that's what the ampersand sign does. It's like a chain, that first initial S, and now in quotation marks, that's called a literal character, gives us the period and a space, okay? Now, I'm going to take that space out for a minute so you can see what the result will be, okay? So let me backspace there. And then I need to put an ampersand in again. And I'm going to combine now the last, and pardon for that. And I'm going to put the last name field right here. Last name, close brackets. Okay. And that is our calculated field. It's calculated. This is called a concatenated field, is what we're doing. We're combining the first name and last name. Plus, we are being very specific with what we want from the first name, which is just the first character. Let me show you what this looks like. It creates it, and when I run this, you can see there's the names of our first initial last name. Notice there's no space between it, and the reason I did that is if you wanted to go back and alter this, you can right-click, you can choose Build or Zoom and get back into it. And I needed to add that space after that within quotation marks. So when I run it, there's the space after the period. Okay, that's called a concatenated field, where we're combining two different fields. A good example is where you have first name, last name, and you might want to create a directory alphabetized by last name. So you want to have last name, comma, and then their first name in one big field to make it look that way on a report or something. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and add our listing ID. We want to add this one, just a regular field. And we're going to do list price, which is right there. Now, guess what we want to do on the last one is we want to do another calculated field. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Okay. Before we do that, let's go ahead and save this. Okay, so we're going to call this potential commission by property. All right, save it. I'll go ahead and run that. So this shows all 57 one of our listings, the agent's name, and there's that name, right? See how that's right there, their ID and their list price. Okay, so and I made those best fit where I can read everything. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, there we go. Now, so I want to go back and I want to get that commission listed right over here. So in the fourth column, guess what we're going to do? We're going to create another one calculated field. So I could go back to build, but you can also go into zoom. This is another way to do this. So again, I've got to name this new field, which is potential commission. Again, followed by a colon. Again, we do not have to follow the camel case rules. And on this one, I'm going to take an existing field, which is list price. And notice that every time we do an existing field, we put it in brackets. And then I want to multiply it by 6%, which is 0.06. So list price is our existing field, right? That's one that we see right here under list price in brackets. The name of the field's potential commission. It has to have that colon, and then we're just simply multiplying it by 0.06. So that creates it. When we run it, notice that it is calculated by taking 229,000 times 0.06. Now, here's the problem with that. Notice that it's not set up as currency. That's a little bit of a problem. So I want that property box to show up that we've been working with. Your F4 key will do this also. Whoops. Maybe. Let me see if I can get out of this. I don't want to be in edit mode. I don't know if the F4 key, let's see, function F4. That is one way of doing it. Also, mine did not do it. So, I want to get to my property sheet. I don't do it this way normally. We should have a command that gets us to that particular one. Let me make sure I save this. Okay. So, but I want to turn that to, yeah, my function key is not working. It's giving me that project option. So, see if I can right click and get to it. All right, let me close that back. I'll go back into this. Okay, my F4 is not working on that. So let's do this. Let's go back into this and look at it in, go into object properties. That's not what I'm looking for. Let's go back into design view. And we'll go to the property sheet this way. Again, I click right here, and now I've got some of my different properties in terms of what I want. So, and I want it based on this field. So notice when I click down this gives me the property sheet, kind of like where we'd see at the bottom of a new field. And I want to go into this and I want to set it up as currency. And that's all you have to do with that. So when I close that and save it and run it, there we go. It's been formatted as currency. So if your F4 key doesn't work the way you want, you can go into design view, find your property sheet, and you should be set to go. Now, the last thing that I want to show you on this one is in design view, the same one. And under agent's name, right now it's just showing all of our agents. So let's say we want to be able to just type in an agent's name. And so to do that, I'm going to add a couple fields here and create what's called a parameter query. So I'm going to add the first name and the last name. So this is like what we did with Rick Chung. We put in Rick right down here and we put Chung, and it brought back just his results. But instead of just having Rick Chung, I want to be able to input it when we run it. So we use brackets to create these parameter queries. And I'm going to put a message that says enter the agent's first name. And you're going to see in a minute what that does. And then over here, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do enter the agent's last name. And when it runs this, it's going to give me pop-ups. I'm going to save this again. And we'll put in Rick Chung, for instance, and then it'll apply that as the criteria, and it'll run the query the way we said. So, and I'm going to go ahead and save this one separately. And it's not just a copy anymore. This one's going to be agent parameter potential commission by property. Big old long name. Okay. And now this is a new name. When I run it, there's my parameter. Okay. Even if I close this and I come and I run it this way, which is right up here, there it is. It's going to say, who are we looking for? So I'm going to put in Gerardo Montoya. Of course, these have to be spelled correctly, and then it gave us the results. Now, if I didn't want first name and last name to show up, guess what? I could come here, do this, save it, so they're not showing up, but it still runs it. And I go Rick Chung this time, and it pulls it without showing the first name and last name. Okay, so that's called a parameter query, and you can do that on any one. Instead of inputting the criteria in Design View, you're going to do it as you run the query. So calculated fields, that concatenated fields where you're combining things, and then of course parameter queries in this particular one. Good luck with this one. We've got one left, and we'll see that in section 4. It's much easier.